There we go. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. We're so happy to see you all here. So, my name is Karin Broberg, and I am the coordinator at NAMI-NYC for the In Our Own Voice program. In Our Own Voice is the presentation that you'll be hearing tonight with two of our amazing volunteers. So I wanted to start by just giving a really brief introduction about NAMI, in case this is anyone's first time joining an event with us, or if you've not heard of the In Our Own Voice program before. So for those who don't know, NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we're the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. So we provide advocacy, education, and support, both for people who are struggling with mental health challenges themselves, but also for family members and friends of someone who might be struggling. So we, of course, come from NAMI-NYC, which is NAMI's local New York City organization. And NAMI-NYC offers a ton of supports, things like classes, workshops, and support groups. Again, both for people who are dealing with mental health challenges and for family members and friends. All of our groups and classes are accessible either online or via Zoom. And we also have an in-person office in Midtown Manhattan, so some of our groups are available in person as well. All of our services are completely free to access, so that's important to mention, and they're also peer-led. So that's something that's really important about NAMI. It basically just means that when you're taking a class or a support group or joining some kind of support for people who have mental health challenges, it's going to be led by someone who lives with that mental health condition themselves. And if you're taking a class or support group for family members, it's going to be led by someone who is a family member themselves. So that's a really important part of what we do. We want to make sure that when someone reaches out to us for mental health support, you're being met by someone who can really understand and can empathize with what you're going through. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about all of our different classes and groups. We have over 40 different support groups at the moment. So basically for anything that you need help with, we're likely to have a group for that. We have some groups that are focused around a diagnosis or a certain challenge that you're living with. So we have our bipolar support group, our living with depression support group, living with thoughts of suicide support group, and so on. And we also have some groups that are more focused around sort of an aspect of your identity. So we have our mental health support groups for people who are young adults or for people who are 55 years and older. We also have our LGBTQ support group, our Black Minds Matter group, and so on. And then we also have some really great social groups. I always like to mention that. So if there's something that you are interested in, and you want to take place and meet other people who are interested in the same in a very sort of open and supportive environment, that's a great suggestion. So for example, we have a running group, we have a creative writing group, we have an expressive arts group, for example. So lots of different options like that, and lots of different ways to get support from NAMI-NYC. I also always like to mention we have a really fantastic phone helpline that you can call, either if you're, just struggling and want someone to talk to, or if you're looking for support on how to access different mental health resources around the city. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link and number for the support for the helpline into the chat here. And I also welcome everyone to check out NAMI-NYC.org, which is our website. So there you can find all the information you need about the different things you can receive from NAMI. So with that, I will give the floor over to our two volunteer presenters, Miguel and Greg, for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karin. And first of all, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I'm so happy to see all these faces. It's really, really wonderful. My name is Michael Andersson, but I go by the nickname of Miguel. So you could refer to me as either. I'm just going to give a little introduction about myself. I am 53 years old. I live in the North Bronx. I have a very close-knit family. My mother lives in the Bronx, and I have two brothers who live in New York City. I just became a new uncle. My younger brother and his husband adopted a little girl recently. So that's been really a joy and a lot of fun. I received my master's in social work from Hunter College in 2019, and I enjoy museums and history, especially New York City history. I love to travel, to write, to listen to music, and to create art. Um, and also, I just wanted to mention before I turn it over to my co-presenter, I'm going to be putting in the chat a little bit later the link to our evaluation. Those evaluations are really great. If you can fill them out, we'd really appreciate it so we know how we're doing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg, my co-presenter.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name's Gregory. Briefly about me, I'm an artist. I live in Westchester. I love nature. I love to be outside, get my energy out kind of thing. And my journey in mental illness started when I was about 7 years old. So I've been in the game almost all my life. So and I guess that's it. I did want to say just quickly about the presentation. That our purpose today is to show how mental health has impacted our lives and describe habits and changes that support us. And it's divided into 3 sections, the talk today. It's what happened, what helped, and what's next. And at the end of each one, we'll have a minute or two to get feedback or questions about what we discussed. Miguel said he's going to post the eval right there. That really helps us a lot, because then it helps us sort of know where we're doing well and where we need to, what we need to focus on. The beginning, what happened? It's a little tough, obviously. But just hang in there. It does get better. And with that, Miguel, what happened?
Great. Thank you so much, Gregory. Okay, so just to start things off, my diagnosis is bipolar disorder. Officially, it's bipolar disorder with psychotic features and post-traumatic stress disorder. So just to put everything into perspective in terms of what happened, so I just recently turned 53 years old. My mental health condition and the problems that I was having with that started when I was 26 years old. So almost a full 25, 26 years ago, this all started for me. I had graduated from Georgetown University in 1993, and I was just living and working in New York City in my 20s, just the typical 20-something. I was a paralegal for a while and doing some temp work. And then in April of 1997, I was 26 years old. I went to a family party at a restaurant. There were about 75 people there in a private room. And it was there at that restaurant that I first experienced my first, what I call intrusive thoughts. I realize now a lot of people that I've talked to in the NAMI community have had similar experiences, but they call them hearing voices. But for me, the fit of the language was more intrusive thoughts. The experience was I was sitting at a table with the other 20-somethings, my cousins, and there were a lot of people coming around with those cameras with the big zoom lenses. And I was convinced that those zoom lenses were guns. And they were actually not just shooting pictures of me, but they were shooting me with these guns. I also thought that everybody in the room, all 75 people, could read my mind. I thought I could read everybody else's mind. So I just want to pause for a moment, because now, as I'm in recovery, I can look back at that time and realize that those were symptoms of psychosis and delusions that I didn't understand back then. I just really, really believed, because it felt those intrusive thoughts were saying, those are guns. People can read your mind. You can read other people's mind. It felt very, very real. What was very important about that moment was I realized if I didn't say something to anyone at that moment, I would have to go home and deal with all of that on my own. But if I did say something to somebody, I was worried what would happen then. So I remember leaning over to a trusted cousin of mine at the cousins table and saying, I think I can read your mind. And she laughed, thought I was trying to make a joke. And then she said, she looked at me, and I think she realized I was not doing too well. And she said, maybe you want to go outside and get some fresh air, which I did. And as I was outside getting fresh air, all the people were leaving the party. So it was a mass exit of 75 people leaving this party. And I was very, very paranoid. Also, another symptom that I didn't realize was from mental illness. And I thought all those people were out to get me. I thought they wanted me to run into the woods where somebody would be waiting with a gun to kill me. So I jumped into my aunt's car and I just said, drive, drive, drive. And she went with it and just drove me to a calm lake. And at this point, I was crying. I had dissociated or started to sound like a 5-year-old the way I was talking. She did a really great thing. She just held me in her lap and she said, what's your favorite lullaby? And I said, the one with the stars in it. And so she sang me Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And it really calmed me down. And it was exactly what I needed at the moment. But they kept me at an aunt and uncle's overnight. And I had racing thoughts. So just thought after thought after thought after thought coming into my mind. And I would try to say everything that was coming into my mind. I was up all night. I had incredible amount of energy. Once again, another symptom of the bipolar disorder, the mania. So the crying was the depressive part, the energy was the mania part, and the delusions that were continuing were part of the psychosis part. And the next morning, my family called a friend of the family who was a psychiatrist. He spoke with me. I was so paranoid, I would only speak with him in Spanish. And he determined that I needed to be taken into a psychiatric hospital. So my parents took me that morning into a psychiatric hospital where I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was later diagnosed with PTSD, and later the bipolar was given with psychotic features as an addition. But I stayed in that hospital for 2 weeks. And when I left, I remember people visited and people called, but I really just kind of wanted to retreat into a cave. I was not feeling good. I didn't want to really, I really wanted to isolate, even though that probably wasn't the best thing for me, but that's really what I was going through at the time. So that's what happened for me. And now I'm going to turn it over once again to my co-presenter, Gregory, for what happened to him.
Thank you, everyone. When I was about 7 years old, I became filled with terror, basically. And I started to do sort of traditional OCD kinds of physical behaviors, very strange OCD kinds of behaviors. And then all that behavior went into my mind. So basically what I did was I created a system, which I later found out is diagnosis as pure obsessional OCD. I created a system basically to run away from my fear. It's like I have to create a system to protect myself from this terror. And in an effort to protect myself from suffering, I suffered, probably 100 million times more than I would have. But so what happened was I started to do this. I created this extremely complex mental. It's not a game, it's a war, really, that has no winner. You can't win the war. That's the nature of pure obsessional OCD. It's a tautology. There's no way out. So I was very consumed. And of course, all the time, I was physically ill. I had ulcer. I was probably about 8 when it started. Vomiting. I wasn't eating. It was very, very bad. It was all genetic. I have best parents ever. My mother has a history of mental illness on her side, and I got it. So anyway, as I went along, I struggled. We got therapy, but I was so lost already in this world that most of the time during therapy, I was ruminating, mumbling. I wasn't even listening. So somehow I was able to survive until my second year of college. I don't know how I did it, but it got to a point where I was extraordinarily sick. I was 19 at the time. And my psychiatrist made some mistakes he was giving me anafranil with Prozac. More. I had a massive seizure. I was already extremely mentally ill, and I got the seizure, and then he pulled me off all the drugs, and then I was deathly ill for 3 days after that. And after that, I couldn't go on. So I dropped out of school, and I'll get to what helped next. I started doing cognitive behavior therapy, which got me out of the first level of hell. But along the way, up until about 4 years ago, other tremendous challenges occurred. There was multiple hospitalizations, multiple suicide attempts, many ECT sessions, the whole thing. Um, and because even though I got my pure obsessional OCD under control with cognitive behavior therapy, the underlying factors that caused it, terror, tremendous sensitivity to a point of a problem with my thoughts and my feelings, and crushing depression, all this stuff, that's all still there, so it wasn't over by a long shot. So that's the basic concept of starting at age 7 and going up, to pretty recently, of the kind of what happened. But again, it gets better. That's coming up next. So if anybody had any comments or questions about Miguel's what happened story or mine, now would be a great time to ask.
Okay, so what helps for me? So just to once again bring us back to it was 1997, over 25 years ago, when I was in the hospital for the first time. They expected me to see a psychiatrist once a month and a therapist once a week, which I've been doing now since then. The thing that I had a problem with was taking the medication that was prescribed to me. I enjoyed therapy. I really did, especially music therapy and dance therapy and art therapy. But I really didn't want to take the meds. So I really struggled for about 8 or 9 years. My experience was basically to stop taking the meds, and about 3 days later, I would wake up at like 3 in the morning, feeling all manic, super energized, and delusional and psychotic. And so the intrusive thought would say, go to the ATM machine. This is the last day on earth for everybody. So take out all the money that you have, jump on a plane, fly to California, where I'd be homeless for 3 days. So it was a really bad mix of the mania and depression and the delusional thoughts. And that was going on for about 8 years. And you can imagine how frustrating that was for my family, who just wanted me to be well. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. There's a book called An Unquiet Mind by Dr. K. Redfield Jamison. Dr. K. Redfield Jamison is still, I believe, a psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins Hospital down in Baltimore. And this book really changed my life because she talks about even being a psychiatrist and living with bipolar disorder herself and going off her own meds. Even though she was prescribing meds for other people, she would go off her other meds. And one thing that I found recently, because she said something when I read the book about, if you can fly on the wings of Saturn, why would you come down to Earth? But one thing that I just recently read, which I thought was really interesting, and I highly recommend reading this book, especially given that we just had an earthquake and we just had a solar eclipse. So when with K. Redfield Jamison, the planets and the heavens, whenever discussed throughout An Unquiet Mind, come to symbolize the duality of manic depressive illness, now called bipolar disorder, its soaring highs, its devastating lows, and its ability to profoundly disconnect its sufferers from reality. And I thought that just like the book, that just, and she's talking about the heavens and Saturn and all the different planets, and especially what we're going through recently now. You can imagine if you saw the solar eclipse and you were in a state of psychosis, how that wouldn't just be an eclipse. It might be something very, very personal for you. So that's a really good example. But what really finally helped me was in 2005, 8 years after being hospitalized for the first time and diagnosed, I ended up in a psych ward in a hospital. I was told to stay there until they found me housing. Unfortunately, that's not the policy of every hospital, but in this case, it was. They found me supportive housing. I had to stay there for 3 months, but when I left after 3 months, I said, I don't ever want to go back to a hospital again. I'll stay on the meds. I'll, take the med regimen as prescribed. So I found supportive housing, which was housing. Started with 2 roommates, and then I now graduated to my own 1 bedroom, which I've lived in now for about 17 years. And it's basically housing with wraparound services. So I have a case manager who visits once a month. They make sure I go to my treatment appointments. They make sure they help me go back to school and get a job. So it's really not just an apartment. It's, apartment with services. Finding NAMI-NYC. So in 2005, like I said, not wanting to go back to the hospital, finding supportive housing, finding NAMI-NYC. It took about, almost 10 years after being diagnosed. But when I found NAMI, I found their Hearing Voices group, for example. And that's what got me started on the whole reality testing thing. And then also therapy. Like now I've had like almost 27 years of therapy, and not just therapy, but family therapy as well. My parents took the NAMI Family to Family course, which they highly recommend, and they got a better understanding of what I was going through. And we went to family therapy together for about 7 years, my parents and I. And we came up with, because I was then on the same page with them. I really wanted to be well. Those first 8 years, I didn't want to be well. But when I was on the same page, we could come up with a similar language, so that my mom used to say, "Are you manic? Are you manic?" And that would frighten me. So now we have a different way of talking to each other, like, "Are you in a state of A or B or C or D?" That's less triggering. We did all that through family therapy. So that being said, those are some of the major things that helped me. Back over to you, Gregory.
Thanks, Miguel. So the main thing that helped me get out of, get my foot again is my feet on the ground again. After I dropped out of college, I was reading the OCD newsletter, and I read an article that struck me. It was written in a different way, and the way that it was written, I understood. It's like this person understands the OCD mind, and he's very close to where NAMI's headquarters is. He still practices, and he started to teach me cognitive behavior therapy. And the basic concept of this is that I sort of create a separation within me. There's me, which are my choices, and then there's my brain and my feelings. They're a part of me, of course, but I am the one, me, the guy who makes the choices, is the one who's in charge. So the idea is that you have to make space for your thoughts to come in and your feelings to come in, and they're very complicated and they're very scary. But what we do is, instead of going into the ring with them and ruminating and trying to solve this unsolvable problem, or yelling at myself and my thoughts and my feelings, the goal is to not to do that. You sit, you feel scared, you don't know what to do, but that's okay. That's the idea. It seems almost a little opposite thinking, because it's sort of the concept is to not fix the problem. It's about learning how to tolerate discomfort and then putting your energy into your life. So it's like this idea of not stepping into the ring. The boxer is calling you in. Your brain is like a bully a little bit. At least my brain is. Yours isn't. Mine is. And he's trying to pull me into a fight. But what he's really trying to do is he's trying to protect me. But it's gone haywire. So CBT is about basically tolerating your pain and not doing the destructive things you used to do to try to make it go away, which never worked anyway. So that's the main concept of what helped me. But as I said, even after I started doing this therapy and getting pretty good at CBT, I'm still the same guy. I still have the same challenges, and life presents you with challenges sometimes that you don't expect, and they trigger who you are. So in addition to the CBT, what's also helped me a lot, Miguel touched on some of this actually, very much so. he talked about journaling. If you write down, you were saying column, rational thought, like literal, not rational thought. You have to sort of start to learn how to be nice to yourself. You have to understand who you are. You have to accept who you are, radically accept, this is who I am. My brain is problematic. My feelings are problematic. I'm not going to war. I'm embracing who I am, and I'm doing things to help me. Miguel is writing things down. I do exactly the same thing. Here's my most recent contract. I signed it right there on the bottom. I won't tell you all the details, but I got a lot of challenges going on right now. There's 3 or 4 things happening in the next 3 weeks. I'm helping myself do this, do that, focus on this, day at a time. That's the kind of thing you do. You get out of this world, this hellish world of well, it's hell. And you face the pain of life kind of, and you get through your day. You focus on your day. You get focused on doing things, your to-do list, not your brain's to-do list, your to-do list. So it's a combination of the basic concepts of cognitive behavior therapy, along with being nice to myself and helping myself, just like Miguel does, with journaling every day, just for today. What's my goals for today? So it's this combination of learning and then pragmatic daily doing. So those are the things combined that have helped me the most throughout the year.
So what's next? First of all, I found this really great quote by Hannah Gadsby, who's a Australian comedian, and the quote says, "Your resilience is your humanity." And I feel that this whole kind of what it's been now since 1997, 27 years for me, has been a real exercise in practicing resilience, which I think is overall has shaped me in a lot of ways, which I find is a positive thing. One really interesting thing, my mom recently found a picture of me at the cousins table at that party of 75 people. And I looked at that picture and I said, wow, there I was, 26 years old. And I would never have thought at that moment how mental illness would have impacted my life through my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and now my 50s. But the most important thing that I want to say is that I'm not bitter. I actually, finding NAMI, I've now been a NAMI volunteer for almost 17 years. And it's given me purpose and a career. And I went back to school and got my degree in social work. And it's just shaped me. I don't think I would have been in this direction if I hadn't gotten sick back in 1997. Also, during the pandemic, what I love about NAMI, NAMI NYC in particular, is that there's always something new. During the pandemic, we were given an opportunity. I was asked as somebody who's a member of the LGBTQ plus community, living with a mental health condition, to start a peer-to-peer group for the LGBTQ plus community, and a support group that meets now twice a month. And that's been meeting since October of 2020. And that's been super important to me. So that has been great. Also, the Hearing Voices group that I've mentioned before that I've been part of, I've been able to co-facilitate. And now we have a Hearing Voices group for family and friends of people who are voice hearers. Also, we've gotten really involved in suicide prevention. I'm co-facilitating now a Living with Thoughts of Suicide group. And now we just started a family and friends of people who live with thoughts of suicide. And we're trying to roll out a suicide prevention plan for NAMI-NYC. And to be a part of all of these things, and there always just seems to be something new with NAMI-NYC. It's been the greatest volunteer work. So like I said before, if this is what was meant for me to come along, I'm super, super duper happy. Sometimes negative things actually can change your life for the better.
Right. Oh boy, is that true.
Go ahead, Gregory.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so for me, what's next, is it's just sort of a day at a time kind of thing. I try to set myself to get, one day at a time is sort of how I want to live. And my basic philosophy is now, after all this time in work, is a little bit like that of a recovering alcoholic. I've been in some AA groups, not for alcoholism, but I know the principles of AA. And I think it's powerful and wonderful and spiritual and cognitive behavior. It's great. And it's basically about surrender. And you'd think, oh, surrendering's bad, but it's not bad. You know, there are certain things like the AA model is I can't do this alone. That's the AA model. I need a higher power. I need a sponsor. I need help. You say I can't do this. And and that's it's not defeatist. So the idea is like I have to accept who I am first. And then every day I just say, you know, here's my goals for the day. I have my contract in my pocket. I can journal. I'm really struggling with this. We're not going to ruminate. I literally will have like bullet points for the next 3 days. Let's try not to ruminate. Be gentle to yourself when this feeling comes up. It becomes a day by day, more nice to yourself journey that's really based on acceptance and surrendering rather than this concept of winning. This is the point. You know, if you're in a battle, you've already sort of lost if you're in a battle with your own mind and your own feelings because they're a part of who you are. These terrifying, scary thoughts and these terrifying, scary feelings are a part of me. So we're all going to go together in the car. That's my new idea. We're all going to go in the station wagon every day together. But that doesn't mean that my brain and my thoughts can control my actions. We all need to be heard, but I can manage. I can cope with these challenges. I have to live with them. And once you stop going to war with that dragon, you don't love him, but he can sit on your lap and you can live. And now your whole life is not either your fingers on the trigger, ready to punch, nor are you ready to run. So the idea is this daily effort to not be in war and to cope with who you are rather than waking up every day thinking you have to fight an indefeatable dragon from hell. You can't survive that way. So that's what's next. It's just doing my best today and getting through a day on the outside. And if I need help, get help. Make your call. Reach out to your therapist. Reach out to your psychiatrist. There's no shame in that. There's strength in that. So day by day, humble, get through a day on the outside. That for me is my what's next.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.